Hey, what is up guys? Welcome back to the channel and welcome back to the Crew Motorfest. This is going to be my first commentary over this game. Apart from kind of the beta, obviously I did take part in the closed beta, absolutely loved it, but now the full game is here for those of us that picked up the Ultimate and Gold Edition. Now I'm going to be covering this game actually on PlayStation 5 and PC. The footage you've seen here is directly from PlayStation 5. I'll be getting the settings and such set up for PC a little bit later on down the line. I'm going to cover everything I can with this game, including, well, the main meat of the game at this minute, which are the playlists. There is, I believe, 12 of them, and I'm going to cover them one by one. We're going to start off with something a little bit more slow-paced in the form of the Hawaii Scenic Tour. This essentially introduces us to this new location for the Crew franchise. Obviously, not really for Ivory Tower, as a lot of these guys had a lot to do with TDU way back when, which is also another favorite franchise of mine. So we're going to get straight into it. I'm going to let the little trailer play, or the intro cinematic, and then we'll get into each of the events in the Hawaii Scenic Tour. See you in a minute, guys. So what is race 1? Well, we're going to start out a little bit more fast paced than we will for the rest of this playlist mainly, and we're going to be taking on the Ford GT here and taking it around the brand new arena. Now essentially this is the central hub that we're getting a little bit of a tour on, where there's a bunch of different kind of environments crammed into one. It's the main hub of the game. It's kind of where you come to do your kind of car meets, or if you kind of want to meet up with a bunch of friends and pretty much do anything within this game, you're basically going to start from the main central hub, which is where we're going about this awesome little track. Now as you can see, there's a bunch of different themes kind of crammed into one. We've got the overall theme of the Hawaii Scenic Tour, but in general, as you can look around this part of the map, there is a ton to see and do with its own little sections, and it's absolutely awesome, and we're going for a little bit of a tour of it. That is what this playlist is, a big tour of the entire map to kind of, I guess, ease us into this new location. Obviously with the previous Crew games, with the Crew 1 and 2, we have the entirety of the United States, but this time around they've gone for a smaller map but a much more detailed map at that, and it is visually stunning. And I think this race, to really start out in all of the playlists, is probably the best way to go. In fact, I would say if you're going to do the playlist, go for this one first, just to kind of get yourself acclimatized to the different environments, what to expect, and the different kind of vehicles that are on offer within this game. So as you can see, race 1, a lap 1, it's rather quite easy to take the lead. I'm not going to really talk about that. Let's just kind of talk about what we can see. Obviously you've got this big loop-de-loop. Again, it's kind of showing off the sort of Motorfest logo, which is absolutely awesome. You've got your shark bit, you've got your Volcano, which is the sort of direct main hub, and that's again where you'll kind of just go in. It's where you kind of started from when you chose your starter car. It's absolutely awesome. You can see that in the background there. Again, it's all very much Hawaii themed and very much in your face, and it's not necessarily a bad thing. Now this is going to be a pretty good time to kind of touch on the whole handling model of this game. It's massively improved over the original couple of Crew games, especially the Crew 2, where they felt like there was very little weight to any of the cars. That's completely gone now, and all of the cars feel very nice and weighty. The Ford GT here, as you can see, will catch me by surprise. I'm used to kind of just being able to hammer corners at 200 miles per hour all of the time, whereas in the Motorfest it does seem like you are having to be more in control of your vehicles pretty much all of the time. So yeah, it's overall a much better feeling game, and that's going to round us up nicely for the end of race 1. Now let's move into the second event. This is again going to kind of turn the pace down. As you can see, we've got a bunch of sort of Hawaiian Samba buses, some old Beetles, some lowriders all mixed in together, and this will kind of show off one of the first features I noticed within this game, is that all the races are pretty much multi-class in a sense. You can have bikes, you can have buggies, you can have classic lowriders, vans, anything, all in a single event. Now, I believe this was the same in the Crew 2 as well, where it will be quite mixed up. Again, I think more in the Crew 1, if I remember rightly. It's been around about 6-7 years since I even touched that game. Everything was kind of more categorized, where it's a lot more sort of open and free flowing here, and it really does feel like it is a proper bit of car culture or automotive culture. And that's kind of the vibe we get from a lot of these kind of playlists, you know, where a lot of them are themed. Ones like these where they don't have a specific theme really do show off a bunch of the different vehicles and kind of different categories of vehicles within the game. Now, what is the main purpose of the Hawaii Scenic Tour? And you're probably going to see here, it's all about really taking photos of the island, some of the more sort of, I guess, you know, vista points and such like that, where you're going to be taking photos of them constantly as you drive around. Now, most of these events will have 3 of them. It's all about the landmarks here. As you can see, we're just getting a bunch of cool little photos. You don't actually have to specifically win any of the events, I don't think, in the Hawaii Scenic Tour. Most of the races and such, you just have to, well, finish them. It is literally a tour of the island. So if you are struggling like early on with some of the vehicles and getting used to the handling, don't worry too much. That's why I would say definitely in terms of a starting point, the Hawaii Scenic Tour is probably the best place to go. It's the one that will kind of ease you in to the overall feel of different vehicles, from classic to something like the Samba bus. You'll have the planes, you'll have the boats, and again, all you really need to do is just get the event finished. It's all about showing you off just how stunning this map is. And that is another thing I'm going to touch on, the map design. It is overall a lot smaller than what we had with the likes of the Crew 1 and the Crew 2. But it is a much better overall time. It's much more detailed. It feels much more varied. Where we kind of get the different states in the Crew 1 and the Crew 2. A lot of them will just kind of copy paste throughout that specific state. You know, if you was kind of in the north of the map, you just kind of get the farmlands, and you know, it all look very samey until you sort of go down south and you've got the, you know, Nevada desert and stuff, and Las Vegas, where it all felt kind of the same. There's definitely more variety in this Hawaiian map, and well, I'm all for it, to be quite honest. I think it really does improve the overall quality of the game, which is what was kind of lacking with the Crew 2 at times. You know, I put around about 700 hours into that game, and I don't regret any of it. I had an absolute whale of a time, but I think just in terms of the map, whilst it was a great spectacle for the size of it, a lot of it just felt very samey. You'd be driving in locations and think, well, this kind of looks like this, and you know, it just feel like it was repeating on itself quite a bit. Whilst you did have your different points of the map, they were very kind of, you know, few and far between. It was very kind of, you know where you'd be in the map, and you'd kind of just think, oh, okay, well, I've been here 1,000 times, or I've seen this kind of, you know, type of terrain and such, you know, 1,000 times once you put that many hours into the game. Whereas in Hawaii, it does seem a lot more varied. You know, the rainforests are very much rainforest. They're more, I guess, you know, filled to the brim with, you know, different vegetation and stuff in terms of the detail. You know, it's much more pronounced and in your face, and it's definitely a much more dynamic map. It feels like it's constantly going up and down, or you're constantly going, you know, moving around the map in a more, I guess, natural way, whereas a lot of the other map would feel either quite flat, or it would just be very much like, you know, a copy paste road just on the opposite side of the map. So overall, it is a massive jump up in terms of quality more than, you know, sort of quantity with the map, which is kind of what you got once you kind of play the Crew 1, and the Crew 2 definitely felt like that. Maybe it's just my own opinion, but I always felt like the Crew 1 actually had the better version of the United States map, whereas the Crew 2 almost kind of took away some of the charm that was originally there. So it was definitely a time for them to kind of move on to a different location. Now obviously that will bring me on to the talking point of the developers. Obviously Ivory Tower having their hand in the Test Drive Unlimited 1 and 2 games. Obviously they've got experience with the Hawaiian map, and whilst it does look quite a bit different from if you've ever played those games, it certainly benefits from obviously a generation leap. And obviously if we're talking in terms of the last time we saw the TDU kind of, you know, going over to Hawaii with TDU 2 alongside Ibiza, then, you know, it's been 2 generations. So overall this is the absolute, you know, more perfect rendition of Hawaii. It's takes kind of what was good about the original kind of TDU maps and really kind of puts it more in your face. There's more to see. You feel like it's just a more lush overall and better environment, and that's really what this Scenic Tour is about. It's showing off this new environment, giving you a good look at what to expect before your time in Hawaii. But it does lead me on to think that there will probably be, you know, map expansions in this game, whereas, you know, we got a couple with the Crew 1, I believe, in the Crew 2. We never got any true expansions, and I can definitely see it happening here with the Crew Motorfest, with them going to different you know, islands and, you know, such like that, maybe along the lines of what we saw with TDU, or maybe just kind of, you know, expanding this Hawaiian map bit by bit with expansions over the time. We all know that these games get a ton of support all the way up until they kind of get phased out by the next release, and I can definitely see it coming here. So overall the map is a refreshing change. In terms of the events though, for this Scenic Tour, to be quite honest, there's really not too much to talk about. Again, it's all about taking photos, it's all about just enjoying the journey and enjoying the trip. Now, one thing that really did kind of put me off was the whole, you know, over-the-top Hawaiian theme. Now, I'm all for the culture and stuff, but the constant, you know, Hawaiian dialect and all that kind of just felt a bit in your face once you've done about, you know, 6 events doing, you know, this kind of Scenic Tour. And again, it's something that really did kind of, you know, kind of grate on me towards the end. It was pretty cool at first. It was like, yeah, okay, you know, pay homage to the culture of the islands and stuff. But once you've heard the same kind of lines over and over again for about 6 events, where they're just constantly talking about, you know, obviously the same kind of thing but in a different way, it was just a bit much. So that's the only real downside of this, but it's definitely more of a newcomer playlist. And as you see in here, this is the Ford Bronco, which we're going to nicely get our hands on as a reward vehicle for completing this playlist, with rubber dinghy physics as well, which is absolutely awesome. Now we're going to go into something a little bit more different here. You know, we've kind of done the whole beaches, and, you know, we've done the whole, I guess, in a sense, sort of, you know, I guess more paradise kind of, you know, lifestyle of Hawaii. We're going to go into the volcanic regions in a classic American muscle car, and this is really where this playlist felt like it started to come alive once again. Now, the volcanic parts of the islands, where you're kind of in between the volcanoes and you through these mountainous roads, are absolutely not only visually breathtaking, but the driving roads that they've created around there are absolutely insane. As you can see, it's all about the American muscle cars here. Obviously we've got a bike kind of mixed in there, but mostly it is about the American muscle cars. And this is where this game really kind of, playlist should I say, really felt like it began to come alive once again. And it was a refreshing change of pace from the more sort of cruise based events that we kind of had after the first one. Now this one's definitely a bit more intense. It's really kind of, you know, putting you in the driver's seat of this classic American muscle car. You know it's going to be slidey. Obviously there was none of this, the kind of assists and stuff back then. You've got a big, you know, gurgling V8 up front in front of you, and the AI are absolutely, you know, pretty good around here, to be quite honest. While they're kind of, you know, I guess much quicker than you in terms of some of their vehicles, and it does kind of show, it does feel like it gives you a bit more of a challenge, and it feels like the game's kind of stepping it back up to try and get you used to what the AI is going to do the further you go into the game, depending on sort of the sort of, you know, playlist that you take. So overall it was a definite, you know, kind of change in pace. It was more revved up, it was more what you want to see, and the location in this volcanic part of the entire island was just absolutely insane. As you can see, it's just, you know, for miles upon miles, what it seems, it's just constant volcanoes, constant mountain roads. It's just absolutely insane. And if I remember rightly, one of the sort of big, you know, multiplayer races that they put in this game, this road was featured on that one during the beta, and it was just absolute carnage. So if you do want a bunch of friends to kind of cruise about in, I honestly recommend taking them up to this part of the map and just having a damn good time, because that's what this really is. So we're going to do a few more jumps and a few more photos in terms of this event. I just kind of wanted to show a bit more of the actual event off, to be quite honest, because again, like I said, in terms of locations, it's one of the most memorable around the islands. And again, just the kind of whole change in pace, you know, a lot of these roads are kind of, you know, really kind of just give you this kind of, you know, sort of ghost towny feel. You're within the volcanoes and you're absolutely hammering a muscle car through before kind of going into a more built up area. It really was a pretty cool experience. So eventually, around about the halfway point, you'll kind of come out and there, come more into the sort of, it's difficult to explain, more farmland kind of regions before going into the more built up areas to finish off the event. So it was definitely a very, very cool experience. As you can see, we're just going to round up here, do a bit of a flick across the Rainbow Bridge in one of the more built up areas within the game, and we're going to cross the finish line pretty soon to finish up this event. Definitely a standout. I do recommend really just, you know, taking your time with this event and just enjoying it for the kind of whole different settings that are going to constantly go on, and that volcanic part again is absolutely insane. So we're going to move on to something a little bit more different. We've finished up the muscle car and we're going to go into the rainforest for now for a little bit of, you know, rallying, should I say. So they do return in terms of the car list. There's a bunch of returning vehicles that have kind of been there all the way since the Crew 1, which I don't mind too much. All of these models do look better than they ever have. And the whole point of this event is, well, you know, taking a little rally through the rainforest. And again, this is where I'm going to kind of show you the part of the maps where, again, it feels more like there's more luscious, there's more vegetation, it's more detailed in every sense. Whereas in the previous games, this would probably be, you know, some very typical sort of flatlandy kind of vibe where you just sort of go through a forest and then that'd be it. You'd have kind of trees either side and then it'd just be sort of, you know, hills, and that doesn't really feel like that. While it is still the same thing, again, it's definitely more kind of in your face, it's more detailed, it's more rich, and it feels absolutely fantastic. So you're going to start off on the beach, you're going to hit the asphalt, and then you're going to turn off straight into the jungle pretty soon. In terms of your rivals here, it's all about the rally car class here. You're going to spot some kind of weird cars if you've never played the Crew franchise before. If it says rally car, while there is a couple of official models and such from kind of, you know, past times, a lot of them are kind of the street versions spruced up to be rally cars, and that's not really a bad thing. You know, it was quite an experience throwing a Dodge Challenger through a rainforest in Hawaii. It was really just kind of different, and it really does show off the more visual, you know, part of this game. And again, that is a massive plus point for this game. The step up in visuals is absolutely incredible. As you can see, we're in the more wetlands of the map. Again, we're going through the rainforest. It's more muddy. You can see the moisture all over the floor, all over the dirt tracks. It's absolutely incredible. So overall, it's a fairly straightforward event. I think the most people that, you know, are going to have problems with it are just people that aren't confident with the dirt driving in this game. It definitely is a different experience, and I do recommend, if you're going to take on the dirt events, just do it without the assists. You do have more control over your car. I kind of noticed at first when I was playing fully assisted and I go over the dirt and such, that it constantly try and keep you sort of on track and really kind of assist you too much to the point where it just completely gets rid of any kind of sense of speed that you've got on the dirt. In terms of the AI though, this event really did kind of highlight how hit and miss they are. Whilst 1 minute you're in a great battle with them, the next minute as you get towards the end of the event, they'll just kind of drop off out of nowhere. Again, it doesn't really matter what difficulty you're in. Sometimes you will just get a completely perfect run by the AI and they'll just absolutely clear you and they're gone. But this is a kind of regular occurrence that kind of, you know, shows itself off more in the likes of this playlist, where a lot of the events go on for longer than usual, and it's mainly there just to kind of, you know, showcase the different parts of the map, because obviously the events are going on longer. So the AI can be really hit and miss, especially during this kind of, you know, section and these kind of events where they just go on for a little bit kind of too long for the AI to cope. Now we're going to hit the waves. We're going to head up over to the speedboats. Again, this is kind of returning from the likes of the Crew 1 and the Crew 2, and overall this is the best version of the boats I've actually seen. In terms of difficulty for this event, I actually found this one probably the hardest of the bunch. However, I do want to kind of mention, you know, again, another step up about the quality of the map, and this part of the map specifically, because, you know, I guess the overall map, should I say, because it's just a damn good time. It's visually stunning. Again, just in terms of a place to take these boats, the entire backdrop, the entire visuals all come together to make this a very, very beautiful experience. And again, don't worry if you're struggling too much. You just sort of need to get the event done, I believe. I'm pretty sure it doesn't force you to get top 3. I know some events are mainly sort of finish top 3, but I think the majority of these kind of, you know, scenic tours are just, you know, get the event finished. But in terms of difficulty, the boats definitely felt a lot more difficult than any of the cars, to be quite honest. In terms of how they work, you've obviously got to constantly push down to give yourself more throttle. Overall, it is a very, very good time though, and once you kind of get used to the boats, I actually think these are going to be very, very popular, especially around the map of Hawaii, just because of the locations, just because of the, you know, the sort of deep blue seas, and, you know, how this map actually is. It's a volcanic island, obviously, and it really does kind of, you know, give you some very beautiful spots to just get on with these boats. And it's certainly something I'm going to be looking into as I kind of, you know, get a little bit more into the free roam and away from the playlist of just getting a bunch of friends together and just hitting the waves and some of the insanely cool speedboats within this game. So again, it's just kind of showing you off what the speedboats are all about, how, you know, how they handle, how they just are overall. There definitely isn't the emphasis that we had with, you know, kind of the Crew 2 on them in terms of the playlists. Whilst I've not fully checked through them all, it does seem like a lot of it is more about the car culture and these sort of on-road vehicles, rather than the likes of the planes, the boats, etc, etc. So in terms of this event, it does go on for quite a while, but in terms of locations, like I've said, and like I've said all the way through this, it is just visually stunning, and that's really what this playlist just feels like. It's a visual showcase for the game. Whilst a lot of the playlists are considering their themes, this just feels like it's just constantly showing off the best of the best within Hawaii. So we're going to go into the later stages here, and again, you can see the different sort of moods between different points of this event. You'll kind of go into sort of a fisherman's bit where it's a lot more rough, and then you'll kind of go out onto these sort of more sort of blue inland parts where you're kind of against the sort of, you know, sands and such, and it's just absolutely incredible. So that is going to finish up the boat event, and we're going to move into yet again something a little bit different with a returning category of vehicle. Obviously, it's going to be the planes up next. So this is the second to last event. We're in the very much famous Corsair, and we're going to have to fly around the map, and that's literally it. It's not a race, it's not acrobatics or anything like that. You're just essentially beating a time, which most of you will do anyway, considering as long as you know, kind of do what it tells you through the checkpoints, you'll get kind of time taken away. I think in the end I was like over a minute ahead of the AI, so you don't really need to worry about that really at all. Just do what it tells you, do your knife flights, all that kind of stuff, and it's a very, again, visually stunning point, I guess, viewpoint of this Hawaiian map. So obviously we're seeing it from a completely different perspective. Obviously we're up in the clouds, in the planes, and how are the handling of the planes this time around? Now you've got two different modes. You've got your more extreme mode where you can kind of, you know, have more control over your plane, which I do actually recommend. But if you are terrible in planes, like some people genuinely can be, then there is the more assisted mode, which you're seeing here. I personally don't like it because it stops you from doing a lot of the things in the planes, but overall it's still fairly decent. And now for one of my favourite parts of the entire event was actually flying over the likes of Pearl Harbor, which it won't kind of mention, but you can definitely tell what it is essentially supposed to be. So yeah, it really is absolutely awesome to see. We're going to then come and land the plane, and that's going to be the event done. So the planes do check out, they're better than expected, and they're definitely easier. If you kind of struggled in the likes of Crew 2, you do have the assist mode there to really do help you out. Now we're going to move into the final event, and we're going to get, I believe, the car that's kind of came with the Ultimate Edition, which is the Civic Type R. And again, we're going to kind of see some of the more built up areas of Hawaii this time. It's all about street art. Once again, you're going around taking pictures, but this is the event that I like to kind of call the bunny hop event, where you are constantly jumping on things. However, it couldn't have given you a worse car to do this. The Civic Type R, you're given bottoms out on curbs, and it really doesn't like jumping. It's such a stiff vehicle, but that's the kind of task we've got to do, which is absolutely ramp this thing. And now this really was a great event. You've gone from all the way around the map, and you're going to go into the more built up areas before finishing where we began with the Ford GT. So here we go. Let's have a quick look at the types of things we're going to be doing here. Like I said, this is definitely a bunny hop event. Now you're going to see what I mean by this as I kind of go through the clips, and you'll probably notice yourself. But like I said, the Civic Type R really doesn't kind of check out for these kind of sort of jumps and stuff. It was quite difficult to get it to land, and it would land so stiff that you'd lose a lot of your momentum. So like I said, it is all about the sort of street art of Hawaii, and it's going to kind of finish off where we began at the sort of main arena of the event, which was a nice little touch, and I think it kind of goes over a lot of people's heads. I know for me, when I first played it, I didn't actually notice it during the beta. That was actually finishing up where we started, but it's kind of like we've done a full round trip around Hawaii. Now in terms of the jumps, there is some absolutely awesome things going on here. As you can see, we're landing on the top of buildings, jumping back off, we're jumping over sort of rivers around the island and around the city. It's just absolutely insane to do. And as you can see, the Honda Civic Type R that we've got here is a very stiff beast. So overall, it's not a difficult event, to be quite honest. It's more, if you can manage to sort of keep the car going and landing it properly, then you're pretty much all good to take the win and finish up this event on a high. But if you don't, then you're probably going to know just how pesky this little Type R can be to get it up off the ramps and really kind of keep it away from curves. But it does showcase that overall the developers have took a more careful approach to the physics. So we're going to round up. We are back into where we began with the sharks and obviously the big blue loop and stuff in the background. Back in the main kind of meeting area, the main sort of festival part, and we're going to finish up the Scenic Hawaiian tour with the Honda Civic Type R, and then we're going to go ahead and collect our first reward car of this entire playthrough, which is going to be this is the Ford Bronco. I'll let the rest of this play out, and then we'll go for a quick little outro. So there we have it. That is the, I guess, part one of the game playthrough, walkthrough, whatever you want to call it. That is the first of the playlist that is beaten, and it's definitely more of an easy introduction to the rest of this series. As you can see, along the way, we're going to have the likes of the electric cars, Japanese cars, which is going to be up next. You don't want to miss that one. It's definitely an awesome playlist, as well as the likes of supercars and kind of concept cars and stuff. There's a bit of everything in this game, and if you like the look of this, well, yeah, you're in for a treat with the rest of it as we sort of turn up the pace for the rest of this playthrough. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to join me for everything at the Crew Motorfest related, as well as all your other favourite racer games, and I will see you in the next one. Take care, guys. Peace.